Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm Tucker Hazel, and of course, I'm joined as usual by the Arbiter of Taste himself, Abram Buhner.
Good
And we're
morning.
back to talk about video games, as usual. Our weekly show here on Backlog Banter, called Backlog Banter. If you like this video, give it a like, give us a subscribe. We've got a couple subscribers recently. Happy about that. And if you want to talk to us, join our Discord, which is always in the description below
First
every
link,
single video.
always.
Yes.
We
Well,
don't write
I might put a
descriptions.
little stuff above it sometimes, but it doesn't really matter.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So the description really doesn't matter. It's basically a vehicle for us to promote ourselves because we
That's
forgot to do
true.
it in the video.
Yeah.
So just fucking join the Discord. It's not hard. That's the thing. We just added some new emotes.
Sure, yeah. Some great
Tucker
ones.
might be working on some rancid N64 inspired emotes, but you won't know for sure unless you actually join the server. It's fun. But Tucker, I think we've failed in our duties of promoting ourselves for long enough.
Yep.
Do you want to hit me with a game?
I'll hit you with a game that we played together.
Oh, I forgot.
Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which I have now touted as the single worst game of all time that holds up visually. You know, you always talk about N64 games, PS1 games, some, of course, Atari games, things like that.
Sure.
Games that do not hold up visually. That visuals have progressed past the need for our eyeballs to observe this rancid visual style. And I think Super Mario Kart is the single worst offender of that.
I would describe Super Mario Kart as visually arresting.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing Super Mario Kart, you have to look through the matrix to really see what's in front of you. And I think it speaks.
It's not really in front of you. It's like
it's rotated and scaled to be in front of you. And I think the thing we recognize when playing it is Super Mario Kart is incredibly important for the ways that it pushed the Super Nintendo hardware.
Yeah.
But it's not fun to control. It's not fun to look at. It's really an assault to most of your senses.
I totally agree. And so Abram and I were playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which we don't really need to talk about too much because
it's a much better game.
Yes, it's significantly superior experience. And we were like, you know what, fine, let's try the Super Nintendo Online co-op or multiplayer, which we had never done before. It was stupid for us to set it up, but once we did get it set up, worked well. No issues there. You have a little hand you can clap with. That's kind of fun. So it's cool that they have Super Nintendo co-op online. I think same with NES as well. Maybe some areas.
Yes, I played Dr. Mario online.
Oh, I would love to do some competitive
much
Dr. Mario.
Better experience than this.
Yeah, but so we just decided to hop into Super Mario Kart, a game that I probably played like half a round of once in my life before.
Sure.
And we played a full cup. I guess I don't really know how it works. It's formatted very differently from the other Mario Kart games. But I was genuinely having physical pain from this experience. I was getting a headache. I was getting nauseous. I was in last place for every lap of every race that we played because I could not figure out how to control it. I was having no fun. I don't think it's probably not a terrible game once you get used to the controls and can adapt your fucking mental capacity to the visual style. But for someone who has not grown up with the Mode 7 semi 3D of the SNES, seeing that and the ways that they just do some things in half 3D, some things are up on the track, some things are flat down. It's really not appealing. And I honestly, I don't think it controls very well either. I was just saying I was having a hard time getting into it. But I don't know, man. Super Mario Kart, very strange experience. Very strange.
Super Mario Kart was necessary to get where we are today, but it's absolutely unnecessary and probably unsafe to play it in 2021. Which I think is surprising going back because F-Zero, which was a launch game which came out before Super Mario Kart, I think is still really playable and uses Mode 7 a lot better than Super Mario Kart does. There's just something about Super Mario Kart that is frustrating. I think it's because they try to put too much detail into everything. They try to have too many mechanics, and it just becomes overly stimulating on technology that just couldn't handle that, which is disappointing in hindsight. But we got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, we got Double Dash.
Got a lot of other ones. There's a lot of other Mario Kart games.
In 2021, there's two. There's Double Dash and there's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And if you're a pervert, there's Mario Kart Wii, if people still play online.
And there's Tour, and there's Home Invasion.
Right, Home Invasion, the best Mario Kart game.
All right, so you know what? Enough about Super Mario Kart. talking about it
Yes.
gives me a headache. I wrote a scathing review of it on Backlog, which was very fun to
sure you
do.
did.
But let's move on to something else. Hit me up in the game.
Let's talk about Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards.
Oh, that's right.
On almost a whim, as I was packing and losing my mind trying to coordinate moving back into college, as you can tell, I'm no longer in the old locale. I wanted to relax and game, and I'm a big Kirby fan. And one of the few mainline Kirby games I have never played is Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked it up on Wii U eShop, about $10, and played through it. It's a very short game, probably 4 or 5 hours to complete.
Yeah.
It's okay. I wrote this on Backlog too. We both use Backlog too much. You use it way more than I do.
Well,
There are 2 ways you
we
can
don't need
adapt.
to. We don't need to incriminate me like that.
Oh, that's fine. There are 2 ways to adapt a 2D platformer to 3D, in my opinion, in the 5th generation. You do what Mario 64 did, and you take the spirit of the 2D games and you recontextualize them in 3D. Or you do what Crash Bandicoot did and basically make a 2D platformer, but you put the camera over the shoulder of the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby 64 takes the elusive option C and just makes a 2D platformer in 3D.
Yeah.
So it uses a dynamic camera that has Kirby moving in and out of the background, and actually introduces some interesting gameplay elements with things coming towards and away from Kirby. It's sort of, if you play Triple Deluxe, some of the sort of 3D
Sure. Yeah.
kind of harken back to what was made possible with the N64 and Kirby 64.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, it's a very standard Kirby platformer that I think is held back by some pretty stiff mechanics. I don't think it plays especially well. I just don't think that the N64 was really designed for 2D platformers like this. So going back to it, it just felt stiff. So that made it fairly, not frustrating to play, but just a lot slower and not as engaging as a lot of the other Kirby games. I don't think it had the precision of either the sprite-based games on SNES or the 3DS games.
Sure.
So because of that, it felt pretty one note. I was pretty interested by some of the level design elements, the ways they do play with the camera. And I think that there's actually some fun production value things here that not even the later Kirby games have. Some fun cutscenes with the ways Kirby's body actually shifts with the copy abilities. There's a lot of little detail and world things that I think Kirby 64 does right. The biggest thing it does right, though, is the copy ability combining mechanic, where you can take 2 completely disparate copy abilities, put them together and make something completely fresh. And this has been given lip service in later games like Squeak Squad, where you can take fire and a sword and make a fire sword.
Sure.
But here, like, you can take ice and spark and make a refrigerator. And Kirby becomes a refrigerator, and he flips his door open and throws food at people.
That's great.
You get rock and you get fire and you make fireworks, and Kirby literally explodes, and like the eyes pop out of his head and he gets all charred for a second and like explodes in fireworks. So there's a lot of fun and creative ideas like that, and there are so many of them that it keeps you engaged in the levels, because you're constantly being presented by different combinations of enemies, which you can then use to check out different powers.
Sure.
So I do think there's a lot of potential in Kirby 64. I think it's got some good ideas, but I just don't think it's especially fun to play when Kirby has evolved so much from a game feel perspective. So it felt pretty stiff, but some elements of it are right. And for $10 in the Wii U shop, if you're curious, I think it does have some things that even the modern Kirby games can't stack up to. So
yeah, sure. I mean, that's something interesting that I don't hear people talk about Kirby 64 very much. It's kind of you skip from the Super Nintendo ones and the old nostalgia of the Dreamland 1, 2, 3 to the Return to Dreamland, Nightmare in Dreamland, some of the DS ones, but 64 is kind of jumped over from my perspective when it comes to Kirby discussion. Doesn't get as much nostalgia, of course, a little bit different visually. But it is interesting to hear that it has some elements like that combining copy ability thing. And that's pretty cool. And I remember I honestly I didn't know that was in that game. But I remember seeing the combining copy abilities mechanic in the Star Allies reveal trailer. In which Kirby becomes a curling stone. And I don't know how similar or different the combining of that game is in comparison to that. Clearly inspired by, but would you say that this does that mechanic a little better?
This is the only time that it feels completely implemented. Like in Kirby Star Allies, it's very contextual when you can combine and what you can combine. This is very freeform, and I think that's what makes it special. And it's a lot more robust and creative in the ways the power-ups truly change Kirby and truly interface with each other. So it's one of those, it almost feels like how Origami King brought back partners in the sense of various NPCs will
Sure,
follow
yeah.
you for a little bit, but they're not, it's there in name but not really in spirit. And that's kind of the same for the copy ability combination and basically an ending game that features it post 64. So which should have
Reasonable.
become a staple mechanic because
Yeah,
that makes
I mean,
Kirby a lot more
seriously.
engaging.
Uh-huh.
So I do like elements of this game, but I'm not necessarily sure when you could be playing, Triple Deluxe, or you could be playing Robobot, or even Star Allies in its current form, or the best Kirby game, Superstar on SNES Online. I don't know necessarily why you would go back to this game, but I'm glad I played it, and I have to play Amazing Mirror and Return to Dreamland. Then I've played the entire Mainland series, I believe.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that'd be interesting. I'd love to do an Abram Buner Kirby ranked, Kirby
I would
retrospective.
love to
That'd
do
be kind
that.
of fun.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's actually hop from a 2D platformer in 3D to a 3D platformer, not in 2D, but that feels like a really old game. And I'm of course talking about the demo for
Oh,
Balan Wonderworld.
okay.
This game fucking sucks, dude. This game is so bad. It's ridiculous. I don't know how they messed it up so terribly. I don't know if you've seen anyone's
Yeah, I
impressions of
have.
it on Twitter. It's really terrible. Yuji Naka, I'm sorry, buddy. You might have designed Sonic or whatever, but you do not have the charm still.
I really have nothing to add. I don't know how this game really happened. There was
Yeah.
an interview where Yuji Naka was like, "This was Square Enix giving me my one chance to make
Yes.
another 3D platformer." Like, I don't know about this one because the stuff I've seen on Twitter is I would describe it as mildly alarming to how the fuck did this happen in your 2021 game releasing in a couple months, I believe.
Yeah.
So, why did you play it?
My friend Joe was over, and we were
Yeah.
we were looking at tweets about it. When we were out doing some stuff, and we were
Yeah.
like, you know what, we're just gonna play it when we get back. It's 2 levels. It's not very long. So we each played one of the levels. It's so strange. I don't know how it came out in the state that it has, because there's a lot of issues with it. Not
Yeah.
only from the beginning we knew it wasn't going to be super hot graphically. It always looked like sort of a late PS2 game with really like weird color saturation and stuff, which is weirdly juxtaposed with these super high production value cutscenes, which look fantastic. I don't know what the budget clearly went somewhere that it shouldn't have, because the
Yeah.
majority of the game you're playing in these 3D platformer worlds. The first level is not grass themed. It's Thanksgiving themed. There's like corn everywhere, and like I don't know. It's really weird. And it doesn't really play into the level design. There just
Yeah.
happens to be like giant cornucopias floating up in the sky for no fucking reason. All right, that's not a criticism. That's just a little bit a weird thing. But not only does your character move incredibly slow, every button that's not your control stick is jump. Literally every other button on the controller. I'm not joking. It sounds like a meme. I'm not joking. You have no other abilities. You hop into one of the costumes, which gives you abilities, and then every other button that's not the control stick turns into whatever ability that costume
Yeah.
gave you. So if that's spin, if that's double jump, if that's whatever, every triggers, bumpers, all 4 face buttons turn into that thing. So there's no freedom of control. There's no freedom of expression in this. It's wild. I've never, it feels like it should be an NES game. 2 buttons. Like, I don't,
It's too late to fix this, right? When does the game launch?
no idea. I can do some research if you
Soon.
want to
Well,
banter a bit.
I don't really want to banter about it because I just think it looks terrible. It's bold to put out a demo when your game looks like this, so I will at least give credit for that, I suppose.
Sure.
But I don't know.
March 26th.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was right around the corner.
Yeah. But actually the final thing, and I think while the movement speed is terrible and the combat is simple and the controls
Yeah.
are awful, the most egregious thing about the game is this visual style that is clearly intended that doesn't work, which is the world folds up in the background. like Interstellar. You know, like Interstellar has like that tube world.
Yes, regretfully
Um,
I do.
uh, but it like folds down in front of you, it like unrolls, but it makes everything feel like it's like wobbling around. And like if you're like walking in circles, everything in the background is going like this, and the background of environments like doing waves, and it feels like you're fucking tripping. It's so weird, and it's so visually distracting and like mentally and stomachly sickening. I don't know how, because clearly it was an artistic decision. They're like, okay, it's like, it's a storybook, it's a dream world, whatever. But it doesn't improve the gameplay. It really is just a visual distraction. It's terrible.
I'll be hotly anticipating your full Balan Wonderworld review when the game comes
Oh
out.
God, no. Oh God, no.
No?
You kidding me? No. This game is not going to sell at all.
It reminds me, do you remember Rodea the Sky Soldier, which I also
No.
believe was Yuji Naka?
No.
It was a canceled Wii platformer that then released on Wii U and 3DS with the
Okay.
Wii disc inside the Wii U
Oh,
version.
I remember hearing
Remember
about that
this?
part. Yeah.
And this game was incredibly notorious. I believe it's also Yuji Naka for being
Mhm.
for being painfully mediocre on the side of downright bad. So he's you know, perhaps
just-
not what he once was.
Yeah, they just keep him around because he made a character once.
He made Sonic and Nights into Dreams.
He
And
did make Knights and Samba de
called
Amigo.
it a day.
I mean, he has a lot of Sega characters under his belt, but it doesn't mean that he's actually good at game design. The characters, sure, they're fine. I mean, the
Balan
characters.
Wolfboy. That's the only one I've seen.
Oh, the costumes are so weird. Like the main one, which like the first one you get, you turn into like this Incineroar looking guy with big ass hands and like lanky arms, and you've just got like your tiny little stupid kid face poking out of it, and it's like, why? Who came up with this? It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. You've also got these little peep looking characters that follow you around. They're called Tim, like just the
Just
name.
him?
Yeah, and
Like,
you can you can
who
feed
are-
them like the collectibles, and I don't know what that does. It's like it's so weird, man. It's so weird.
If your birthday was anytime not when it actually is, I would have just bought you Balan Wonderworld so you could have reviewed it for us. But I
Well,
refuse to do that.
yeah. I mean,
So,
it's not for a
so
while.
what? 4 months late, we'll get you that fucking Balan Wonderworld review. In the meantime, Tucker, I want to talk to you about our Lord and Savior, Halo 4.
Oh, I didn't know you played that.
Yeah, I started Halo 4. Now, as people who are following along at home for the past, when did this game come out? Like 2012, maybe? For the past number of years, Halo is no longer being developed by Bungie. I know, big shock there. 343 Industries has taken over the series, and of course, Halo 4, the first 343 Halo game. And I am 3 missions into it, which is very early still. But it basically feels identical to the Bungie games. Now, I just got to where the Prometheans are introduced, who are the basically
Oh, of course.
the new race of characters. So, like I said, I'm not going to talk very much because I'm right at the cusp of it going from, hey, this is kind of like a continuation of where Halo 3 ended, and we got some Covenant still, to more what 343 really came up with themselves. Sure. So my first impressions are very good because it feels very similar. They don't have that enhanced mobility. You don't really have anything here that feels particularly strange. It feels like more Halo, which I love. I'm a big Halo fan, as I've come to learn this year. And I'm very curious as I play more of 4 how it unfolds, because a lot of people's issues with 343's games is in the multiplayer realm, in the ways that it changed sandbox multiplayer. The single player campaigns, at least 4, is pretty well regarded. So when I get through 4's campaign and 5 Guardians campaign, we'll see how I feel, because I'm not really interested in Halo for the multiplayer, which is bizarre. But for me,
that's reasonable.
I like the single player campaign experience, and so far 343 has given me what I want. Next week, I probably will have finished it because these games are not very long. So I'll have hopefully a more long thread I can tease out and give some more thoughts on the game. But
I kind of like the format of BLB having like a 2 to 3 week mini arc of us playing a game. I've always found that kind of fun. You can like look back and be like, oh, that's right, I did think that when I'd only played the first few hours.
Yes.
But I mean, it's cool that you're enjoying it. It seems like a little more than possibly you were expecting. I mean, clearly there is a a dichotomy between the 343 and the Bungie, and within the Halo community, people really not giving the later ones the credit that maybe they deserve. I don't know. I have
I'm
no
not sure.
perspective on them.
It's early.
But yeah. So how many hours would you say you've played? Missions
Probably
doesn't
2.
really do much for me. Okay, 2
Maybe
hours.
1 to 2, and not because missions they're quick. I didn't play a whole lot. It was yesterday afternoon. I had a little session of it.
Okay.
And it feels good. The movement feels good. Gunplay feels good. The game is very pretty. It's
Mhm.
it's a 360 game, of course.
Yeah.
Master Chief Collection got a little bit of a spit shine for a Series S, Series X, something like that. So the game looks great. I think it sounds and plays pretty well. When I actually get into more Promethean stuff, and I'm actually into the next chapter of Halo 343, we'll see if that's changed. But so far, I like Halo. It's
Yeah.
Halo.
Yep. Okay, let's move on from Halo 4 to this is not going to be a classic BLB like mini thoughts review, because this is more of a story tangentially related to a game that I played. A game that I don't think I played. I played it at 1 a.m. on a night where I was really tired, and my friends were like, play the game, play the game, play the game. So I started Resident Evil 7 Biohazard when I was like half awake.
Okay.
And that's what the most of the story is going to be, is the fact that I was drifting off to sleep like every few steps I was taking in this game, and my friends were like, just shoot, like or like move around, like what are you doing? I would like stare into a wall because I would be like doing that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was at the point where like the dream world and reality were merging together. But I am really interested to actually I'm restarting the game. I only played like
Yes,
45
sure.
minutes of it. I'm interested to actually play this game because even though I was half awake, I'm already able to recognize the incredible quality that this game has. I mean, it's got a reasonably, I mean, the intro sequence isn't anything insane. You kind of just drive up to this old house and then you go into it and you're looking for your stupid girlfriend. And then you have a fight with her, and then you get captured by the family, and that's about as much as I played. And then my friend Joe picked up, where you get chased around by the dad of the family. I didn't actually play that part, but so far everything about it I'm very interested in, and I do want to give it a bigger push. Because I did not give it a fair shake when my friends were just forcing me to play it while I was barely able to form coherent sentences. Like I would be trying to talk about it. I'm like, no, I'm trying to do this, do the thing. And they're like, you're not talking to us. That's not a real sentence. And I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. So that was fun.
Well, that's Biohazard. I will play it.
I doubt that.
You're probably right. I don't know.
It's too spoopy.
What I like about 4 and what I liked about what I played of 2 is like that campiness. I think like the fun action campiness of Resident Evil is what attracts me. And perhaps I'll be a fucking dumb idiot and feel FOMO when Village comes out and want to actually play that. So maybe I'll play 7 then. We'll see. You're a little bit more invested in the whole Ethan Hunt. No, that's Mission Impossible. Ethan Winters.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not invested in him. No, he's classically a terrible character. Even people who played this game are like, you never see his face. He has no personality. He's like the worst Resident Evil character personality wise. So I'm not invested in him. I don't give a shit, but I want to play the game because the world seems interesting. The evolution of the gameplay mechanics seems interesting. I mean, it's clearly intricately designed and there's a lore behind it and all of that. So that's what I'm playing it for. Certainly not the main character.
That's fair.
You get your hand cut off.
I do know that.
And
you
like, hold it
like back on?
No, someone staples it on for you. And then they give you a fucking Apple Watch. It's very kind of them.
that's nice. That's nice.
And I'm pretty sure that's what lets you like check your health and stuff, which is cool. I like those little kind of touches where they're able to integrate HUD stuff into like the reality of the game. I think that's really cool. It's just, and I think there probably is some of that campiness that you are wanting, but I think it's just a little more obscured under a more classically horror styled game.
Yes.
With the ways that I don't actually know name of the family because I was half awake. But the
The
family
Addams
that's
family.
sure the Adams family. They're chasing you around. You know, they're doing here's Johnny lines and stuff like that. There is a silliness to it, and the fact that you
Sure.
have your arm cut off and you're walking around with a bloody stump of an arm, and someone staples it back on. Like there are certainly those moments, and you actually play through the sequence where it's like a flashback sequence. You're playing as like a paranormal investigation group who all get killed progressively. That's pretty early on. So there are those elements to it. I just think that it's presented more in the mainstream culture as a horror game.
Yeah.
But I think there is still that Resident Evil camp somewhere behind it, behind that veil.
I'll consider it.
I don't know.
I don't
I'll-
really like yucky stuff. I will say that. That's certainly a hurdle. That's certainly a
mean,
hurdle.
You like your haircut.
Here's one kind of yucky thing I like that I want to tell you about.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the game Post Void? Of course you're not.
No, why the fuck would I be?
The reason you're not familiar with it is because this is a $3 indie game that is released only on Steam. And it's essentially, now Tucker, I've never smoked a crack pipe. In fact, I've never done a drug of any kind. But playing Post Void is what
Could have fooled me.
Post Void is what I imagine acid and or crack would feel like.
Mm-hmm.
It's
gonna watch the official trailer as you talk.
It's basically, for people who are unfamiliar, it's Hotline Miami's ethos
Doom.
cranked up to 955 in the style of a roguelite Doom game.
Yeah, it's like a Wolfenstein 3D.
It's somewhere between an old id shooter and Hotline Miami with some almost Downwell like roguelite gameplay mechanics. And one of the fucking most bizarre and interesting art styles I've ever seen in my entire life. I described it as Dr. Seuss and Francisco Goya going on an acid bender together.
I don't know who that second person is. I'm learning a lot today.
Yes. It's a very surrealist and obscene game.
Okay.
Obscene in like the more like traditional hoity-toity academic sense of the word. It's worth experiencing. It's got really smooth gunplay. It's fucking demanding as hell. A run will literally die in minutes. You can beat the entire game in like 10 minutes if you can, but you're not going to be able to.
Mm-hmm.
I've played a couple hours. I can't get more than 5 or 6 stages in. You have to beat 11 stages in a row to beat the game.
Sure.
But the gunplay is really great. It's really snappy, and it's fucking $3 on Steam. What this kind of spoke to me about, not only is
why'd you buy a Steam game? Is the first and foremost question in my mind.
Because unfortunately I couldn't play it anywhere else, and I was intrigued by it a lot. And I
so you were forced.
Yes, I was basically.
Your hand was forced. Yeah.
My hand was forced. There's no other way to.
Basically at gunpoint. Basically with a knife to your throat, you were forced to purchase a game on PC.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. It must have been terrifying.
It really was, but it worked. I got it set up, got a plan, got it going. Check this game out. It's cheap, and I think you'll understand why it's compelling and interesting after a few runs. And it spoke to me about the fact that there's this stratified view of the indie scene where like the quote unquote mainstream indie games get all of the attention. You know, your Stardew Valleys, your Hollow Knights, your Fall Guys, all of these games, right? And that becomes the indie scene. But there's this other like really indie scene that I want to explore more of. And sometimes you break through and you find things like this, which are really worth attention. And this game has quite the small but dedicated cult following. The reviews on Steam are incredibly positive. Like I said, it's very cheap. Check it out. You play for 5 minutes and you'll understand what the game is. I really recommend it.
Okay. Well, probably not going to do that. There's so many games that I actually give a shit about that I want to play.
There.
But I mean, honestly, looking at it, I like the art style, like the weirdness of the characters, like hand and the gun and stuff. Yeah. But I mean, fast-paced shooting gameplay like that, roguelike, none of that really appeals to me. Yeah. So I can't say that I will check it out. But you know, maybe when it goes on sale. No, actually, I do like that it's really cheap. That's an interesting draw that team clearly made that decision to be like, you know what, we're gonna put it out there. People are gonna find it. It'll be cheap. They'll say, why the hell not? And I'll enjoy it. So I think that's pretty cool in itself.
Yes.
I don't think I really have anything else to talk about here. There's one main thing. You have two more?
Yes.
Okay, and I believe one of them we share, quote unquote.
Yes.
Okay, give me your other one first.
Okay, so these are very brief impressions. I want to talk very quickly about the new PS5 exclusive, Destruction All Stars.
Oh,
This game is really cool. So I've played the tutorial and I've played one multiplayer round.
mhm.
So it's very preliminary. Essentially, it's got some Twisted Metal DNA in there. It's got some Battle Royale DNA in there. Essentially, you play as one of these cool Avatar All Stars characters, and you're in this arena, and you're jumping into various vehicles, and you're slamming into each other. And basically, the goal is to cause destruction and score points. Smash other people's vehicles, take out their drivers, get special cars that with big saw blades on them to rip people up. It's a flashy and fun gameplay experience that I would have felt ripped off buying at $70 as it was initially positioned.
Yeah.
But as a PS Plus title, I think this is something really unique and fun. It's clearly a multiplayer focused experience. There's some offline modes, but really the core of the game is multiplayer, and the core is this really replayable, really tight loop, and it's satisfying. So far, it's satisfying. I like the way it feels. I wonder about the game's longevity. I wonder
Yeah.
about the way it's really going to connect. Of course, as of when we're recording this is launch day, so we don't really know. I plan on playing more for sure. This seems like a good game. I like to have a game that I can hop into for like 20, 30 minutes at a time. Rounds are 6 minutes long.
Okay.
So it's easy to jump in and play a couple and hop out of. And it's got that sort of Nintendo appeal to it in the way that Nintendo designs their multiplayer games to be accessible but have it have a high skill ceiling. So
Sure.
you can immediately pick it up and understand why it's fun and compelling. It's very flashy. It uses haptics in the DualSense very well. The ways that you can feel your engine rev, the way that you feel the hits you take to your vehicle,
Mhm.
and the way like you can feel your car start to sputter out as you take more damage, like your gas pedal will kick back against you as you're puttering along. There's some really cool things. It's very clearly designed for PS5. It looks beautiful. So I'm excited to see if next week I'm gonna have more thoughts, because that'll say that that's hooked me. I'm playing some more. Right now, I anticipate it being the sort of game where I play. I'm gonna hop into a couple rounds. I just got back from class. I need a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Gonna eat my Welch's fruit snacks that I keep in my room and play a couple rounds of this game here and there. But I don't know if this is gonna catch on. I don't know or think this is the next Rocket League, to give a pretty direct analog there. Not only
Yeah.
because they're vehicular based, but because they were both PS Plus
Mhm.
games. I'm curious if this is going to be more like a Fall Guys, where it catches really quick and falls off.
Mhm.
No pun intended. We'll see. But I enjoyed my first taste. Just getting my palate wet, for the next bite of Destruction All Stars. It's interesting. Glad it wasn't $70.
Yeah.
Glad I get a shot.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this is that clearly there is quality here, clearly there is entertainment value, but it was positioned as one of the launch titles for the console. And I
Yes.
think their choice to delay it out of the slot where it would have been competing with Miles Morales and
Man.
Demon Souls and Bug Snacks and all of those games that launched the console to something later, where there's not really any big games coming out now that are in that slot. Um, and clearly it's designed for PS5 with all that. I mean, why not? And I'm glad it's a PS Plus thing as well.
Yes.
Obviously, only reason I would ever try it is because of that, and I probably will at some point. But I mean, I think that could give it that push if it gets in the fan base. I mean, things still like Fall Guys, Bug Snacks, Rocket League, those games that came out got their following because of being on PS Plus and have since grown into something that people still continue to buy to this day. Um, Maybe this has that power. I haven't heard too much opinions on it in the Twitter sphere in the last day or so, but I think it's probably just because it's overshadowed by the two other games that are coming on PS Plus this month. I mean, we've got a stacked PS Plus, but I mean,
This is a great month for
yeah,
real.
I mean, because already Control and Concrete Gene are games that people are familiar with. Exciting to get larger titles like those onto this, and then Destruction All Stars is like the one that's like, oh, that was supposed to come out. It's the multiplayer thing that we were going to spend $70 for, but it could have that staying power. We'll have to see.
I think what's going to hurt it is the fact that it is PS5 only. This game is not on PS4.
Sure.
And here's the thing. I think that the PS5 needs more core exclusives.
Uh-huh.
I really have not used my PS5 that much after Cyberpunk. And arguably I shouldn't have even played Cyberpunk on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, Sony really came out of the gate swinging, and then it became, you know, the machine of playing my PS4 games and playing some older stuff. Like I played Resi 4 on here when we did our review. But my Series S has gotten a lot more use because of the way that ecosystem is structured with Game Pass and everything. So
Mhm.
I think having something like Destruction All Stars now is good. But of course, we're all waiting for Returnal, but really waiting for Ratchet
Yeah.
and waiting for Horizon and hopefully God of War. So we'll
Yeah.
see. By the way,
Ooh.
Tucker Hazel,
Ooh.
I'm making two proclamations right here.
Okay. Should I write
I'm
these
going to
down?
play Control
Okay.
to completion because now it's on part. A lot of my frustration with Control is because it ran like fucking AIDS on my
Yeah.
base PS4,
Mhm.
and for me it was unacceptable. That's one of the few games I played. I'm like, this is unacceptable from a
Mhm.
technical perspective. So with that and PS Plus, I will play that. The second one, call me Tanner Dykstra the second, because I'm gonna play God of War, because today Sony Santa Monica, fuck you Tanner. Sony Santa Monica today released the PS5 patch for the game.
Yeah, I know. Yesterday I saw that announcement and I like came in the kitchen like, hey, guess what? They're
Yes.
releasing a fucking big boy PS5 like patch for God of War.
Yeah.
And he's like, you kidding me? But then also he came around and realized it's not that big of a deal. I mean, that game
Yeah.
is still a technical marvel on a base PS4. No visual errors, no frame
Yes.
rate problems, stuff like that. So this is really just that extra boost. Not necessary by any means, but to take full advantage of next gen things. I'm not exactly sure the exact changes, but higher fidelity, better frame rate, stuff like that.
Basically what it is so PS4 Pro games usually would give you a performance and what is it? Performance and fidelity modes.
Mm-hmm.
Basically this patch is taking God of War PlayStation 4 Pro's performance and fidelity modes and sticking them together. So you get
Sure.
both.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is, pretty much. The resolution I think is a little bit higher than the PS4 Pro version did, but basically it's just saying that this machine is strong enough to have both of those modes together instead of having to make a choice. I believe also that you can still have the choice if you want it. I don't know why you would. Maybe when I actually get into the game, we'll
Okay.
see. But those are two pretty high priority things. But we're also
Sure.
really close to Mario Man, so
Oh yeah,
so
10
that's
days.
gonna take some precedence. But on PS5 at least, the next things I'm playing are Control and God of War.
Yeah. I mean, both of those games I think will be the optimal experience in there. I might go back to Control. I've got a lot of stuff that I am a little more pressed by at the moment because I platinum Control, not very much impetus for me to go back to it. I think it is the Ultimate Edition that's on PS Plus. So, and I haven't
Yes,
played the DLC. So if I go through it, maybe I'll do that. Who knows? We'll see. But that I mean, that's something that's an intriguing back thought to me, but not anything pressing.
sure.
Is it
I've
time?
got one more game.
Is it time?
I think you have the same game,
I
right?
think it's unfortunately time.
You think it's time for Cyber Shadow?
Yeah.
So I played 8 chapters of the game, and then I had to stop because I was hitting my head against the wall, and I was also stressed out with actual real life stuff. And I'm like, the
Sure.
last game I need to be playing right now is one that's. I think I told you hitting my nuts with a hammer repeatedly.
Yeah, that was a great line. Loved that.
So yeah, so I haven't beaten the game yet. I'm very close. I'm going to just so it doesn't fall into the fucking wayside because I'm really close to the end of it. I'm 2
Hmm.
chapters away.
Just like
You don't
Age of
like it,
Calamity.
right? Yeah, but Age of Calamity has no merit.
And guess what? Cyber Shadow has a little bit of merit. It's a solid game. It's just really not special at all. I played 3 chapters of the game.
Okay.
Graphics are fine. Soundtrack is fine. It's just like any other edgy indie game that's ripping off fucking Ninja Gaiden. I mean, like there's just nothing about it that grabs me. It's not memorable character design, not memorable enemy design, fine sci-fi level design, rocking soundtrack, but nothing completely unique. The mechanics, I mean, I like the save thing where you can
Yeah.
upgrade the little bits, but they're all cheap, so you can get them all every time. It doesn't really matter. The save points are so spaced out, it can get really frustrating. You can die really easily if you fucking get hit by a 1 pixel dude and you fall off a cliff into his spikes, and you like, well, I gotta go beat that fucking boss again, or mini boss, whatever, not actually boss, because you get a save after those. But it's just it's just not special. It's totally solid, but it's just there's nothing about it that's unique or interesting.
So I disagree pretty fundamentally, but I think it depends on what you're going into the game looking for.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, I feel like let me run it back to the year of our Lord 2016. A little
Okay.
game called Abzu came out, and at the
Sure.
time, PS I Love You XOXO, hosted by Hack Greg Miller and
Mm-hmm.
best games journalist in the industry Colin Moriarty, where we're talking about Abzu.
Mm-hmm.
And they personally felt that the game was way too similar to Journey. They felt
Sure.
like that game was just Journey repackaged, shoved under the water instead of into the desert, and thrown out for the audience to experience. And I understand that read of the game because in a lot of respects it's going for the same thing. It's got a very similar atmosphere.
Yeah.
Those games are very much analogous.
The same composer. I think Austin Wintory also did the score for.
Yeah, there's a lot
Maybe
of
I
talent
may be
and
wrong.
there's a lot of talent from that game company in Giant Squid.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like there's a similar relationship between Ninja Gaiden and the 90s action platformer and Cyber Shadow.
Yeah, I was right.
For me, I think that there is a unique excellence in the NES era action platformer.
Mm-hmm.
I think those games are pretty much perfect from a gameplay perspective. So for me, the success of Cyber Shadow is the way that it doesn't take the player back to the past, but it brings the past to the present and shows, keep in mind, it's confusing but important. It shows that these gameplay systems are just as compelling today.
Sure.
It take a game like Ukulele, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ukulele is a return to the fifth generation platformer with all of the fucking issues. It is a fifth generation platform that released way
Yeah.
later. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, the game fell apart because Odyssey, Hat in Time, these games proved that you can iterate on that and make it stronger.
Sure.
Cyber Shadow, for me, reminds us that those games, your Mega Mans, your Ninja Gaidens, they were really close to perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
they are limited by certain things that Cyber Shadow unshackles. I totally disagree that the level design is unfair. It does have too many fucking one-hit kill spikes. That's the one
Yeah.
thing that
That's what I mostly mean.
yeah,
I don't think the level design is poor. I just think visually
sure.
and like layout wise, they're not incredibly engaging.
Well, I
It's
think
not special.
Cyber Shadow's biggest problem is it backloads all of its best ideas.
Okay.
As you play more, and this is an argument to the game's strength, but also an argument to its, I think, poor structure, which is probably my
Mm-hmm.
biggest complaint with the game. It gets a lot more interesting visually and mechanically when you hit, I'd say, probably chapter 5.
Okay.
Before that, what I think it is a distilling of tropes and ideas and gameplay mechanics that were so successful in the 80s and early 90s and bringing them to 2021 and getting rid of some of the jank, presenting them in the way that you wanted them to look, but they couldn't, presenting
Mm-hmm.
them with the fidelity you wanted, with the precision of mechanics, with the ability for the game to understand you killed that enemy, you don't need to kill him again, you don't have to have him walk back on the screen as soon as you kill. It's an understanding of why those games work and a repackaging of it in a new context. And for me, I like that. But it also speaks to the fact that there's certain gameplay styles that I think everybody can overlook being too derivative if you like that core experience. We both love Abzu because we both love Journey, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
completely understand the perspective that Abzu is too much like Journey. I
Sure.
completely understand the perspective that Cyber Shadow is too much like Ninja Gaiden and it's too much like these other games. But I love those games.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, Cyber Shadow is a sharpening of those.
Yeah.
So I think it starts too slow. I think that it 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 doesn't do enough to differentiate itself early on.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get deeper into the game and you get to these levels, like you're in this medical facility and research lab that's been overrun by like this breakaway toxic chemical that's literally chasing you through the levels.
Mm-hmm.
You get into all of these really interesting situations. You're platforming out of this broken subway system up onto the rooftops, and there's this aerial battery firing on you, so you're breaking in and out of cover to try
Yeah.
to beat the barrage and everything. But those ideas are backloaded. When you
Yeah.
get there and you get the dash, the air dash, the charge, the DuckTales hop, when you get everything that the game has to offer, then it becomes more than just a new way to experience those old gameplay systems.
Yeah. So, because
No.
interestingly enough, I mean, listening to name these set pieces and unique situations that you're thrown into, I don't even think I can name what the themes or set pieces or whatever are supposed to be in the first three chapters. Did you even remember? I mean, it's
Well,
like
no,
a cave maybe, or like maybe it's a facility. I can't even remember if it's like techie or rocky. Do you remember?
yeah, it's more tacky because I think one of the game's stronger suits is its cyberpunk aesthetic. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I also have a stronger. I've got a Johnny Silverhand poster behind me below my Blade Runner poster. So believe it or not, I like the cyberpunk aesthetic a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it speaks to the fact that those first few chapters are a little bit more routine. They're a little bit more procedural.
Yeah.
And that is one of my core issues with the game. So
Mm-hmm.
I think what you're saying is totally fair.
Yeah, I mean, like listening to you say those things, I'm of two minds of this. I think yes, it's very good that this game has that in it. Those memorable things that set it apart, the action, the set pieces, the unique locales, the memorable things like that. Um, and I'm not going to disparage the game because clearly it does have that in there.
Yeah.
I just don't think that the difficulty for me is too unfair in those one hit kills and the spaced out checkpoints and like that for me to want to proceed in the game where it will inevitably get progressively harder. Even if you are getting those more abilities that allow you to interact with the environment in different ways, I'm just not enjoying that the pacing of the game enough to want to push through because it will get harder and I presumably would get more frustrated on that. Um, and I'm of the mindset, and as I've realized in the last few months, that it's perfectly okay for me if I start a game and it doesn't click with me. I shouldn't push myself on it because I there are not very many games where I've pushed myself through and enjoyed it more. Usually I just get progressively frustrated and come on the other end just shitting on the game. I mean that's my personal experience
Sure.
with things, but there's so much that I do want to play that if I and I did play this game for 3 hours and feel like, well, I don't. Well,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know if I want to go back to it.
And that's totally fine, and we all have games like that, and we all have gameplay styles like that, and I think something that's interesting is I don't find Cyber Shadow especially difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but I find like you were talking, like you're like Bloodborne's fucking easy. I get these Souls games. I would not have the first fucking mental. I would not be able to rub two brain cells together and understand how to beat a game like Bloodborne. So for me, and I think that would color my impressions of that game
Mm-hmm.
the way that I think your problems with this game's difficulty color them, because I don't necessarily think that anything here is designed in an unfair way. For me, I don't think the checkpoints are too fair, but it's also important to remember this is very subjective. It's the same way when I'm like Sekiro, fucking I don't know, I thought it was too hard, it didn't click with me. And that's nothing to say anything about your skill level or what kind of games you're good at or bad at,
Yeah,
but for me, I didn't feel that, so I have a hard time connecting to that. Cyber Shadow is, it's weird. I'll be curious to see what its legacy ends up being.
sure.
I'll
Yeah.
be curious to see how this plays alongside Shovel Knight. I'm curious to see how Yacht Club keeps expanding.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's very interesting to pick this game up.
The final thing I want to touch on with regards to that is that I think the reason I was able to push through on Bloodborne and come out the other side saying, "Hey, I didn't think it was that hard," is because that game has a way for you to tailor the difficulty to yourself in
Sure.
in a kind of a more hidden way. But if you approach that game not from the perspective of blasting through, but taking your time, not being opposed to grinding, not being opposed to watching guides and learning more about the world and taking it a step at a time, it's not actually that hard. There are ways to cheese the bosses. There are if you can easily over level yourself if you want to, and that's why I didn't find it particularly difficult.
Yeah.
I cheesed the fuck out of that game, and I'm totally proud of it. Cyber Shadow has the quote unquote like difficulty scaling is you unlocking your 3 little bits at each checkpoint.
Yeah.
But as I said, I was able to get each of those every time I went through, and I didn't feel like they've really gave me enough to feel like I was being empowered to help me through that area of the game. Like I just wish that there was a way in that to scale it to an even greater degree if you needed a little more help.
And that's fair. I actually think that the way they present those items is pretty great, because those items are specifically tailored for what section you're coming up
Sure,
against.
yes, I like that.
What it requires is changing your play style sometimes. So I also found times where those checkpoints weren't helpful because they were giving me this robotic power up, whatever, which is basically implying that I should be adopting X play style when Y feels better for me. So it's an interesting approach to how it changes difficulty. It reminds me in some respects of like how also Shovel Knight plays with difficulty, and
Yeah.
it's two sides of the same street. I don't know. I'm excited to finish Cyber Shadow. I'm excited to finish it. I'm close to the end. The game is pushing back on me more now. It does get harder as you go along, but I don't know. I really think that I'm gonna finish this game, and it's gonna be one of the standouts of the year for me. But it's early, and maybe it means that I sit with it, let it be on the old Series S here, and return to it several months later and blast through it. So
Sure.
Bring up one Mr. Colin Moriarty again. You know, he really loved Final Fantasy VII Remake, but didn't feel it at the beginning. Came back to it later. We all have games like that. So,
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I was very hyped for this game. For me, it did live up. It didn't live up all the way because I didn't finish it. I think some of my extenuating circumstances kind of kept me from just popping it and being done. But we'll see.
We will see. Anything else you want to talk about, or are we done here?
Super Mario Party is fun. That's all I want to add.
Oh, I didn't know you. Oh, that's right. You did. I did know you playing that.
Yes.
Got a picture of you dressed as Waluigi last night.
Yes. I was
playing
with my girlfriend, but it was very fun. We need Super Mario Party 2, though.
That would be. I mean, check Card in the Corner to our Nintendo predictions video. That went up, right?
Yeah, a long time ago. Link in the description to my CBR piece about it.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to, I'm not doing that. You can come back and add your links. All right. Well, I think that about does it. Thank you for watching, everyone. Join us next week. We got more games. We got more life to talk about. And join the Discord, like the video, subscribe to the channel. That's all.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Goodbye. The inside of Mario's asshole looks like Jabu Jabu's belly.
Let me warm up my vocal cords.